and foremost, according to the NNPC, the reversal is pegged on the latest activities surrounding their financial activities as well as engaging on a prompt way. The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited has officially ruled out the sales of the Port Harcourt Refinery Company, reaffirming its commitment to completing high-grade rehabilitation and retention of the plant. Group Chief Executive Officer of NNPC, Mr. Bayo Julari, announced during a company-wide town hall meeting at the NNPC Tower in Abuja, ending weeks of speculation over the future of the country's most prominent state-owned refinery set. Joining me on the set right now is Dr. Wisdom Enang, who is helping us to explain this issue. I could recall some weeks back, it was this same Dr. Wisdom Enang that brought on the issue that explained the viability, the value of this for refinery that being said. Let us put it for say. Doc, a very good day to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Good day.
So I know let me just take a review of some of the things that you said the last time we talked about the sales of the national refinery, and quite objective in your analysis. But how did you receive the news that NNPC is now saying no more selling of those refineries?
All right, thank you very much. I think, primarily I looked at it from the standpoint that they have the data, they understand whether it's worth a sell or not. And I don't know how preview information about those refineries, but what I would say is that there are a number of data that we'll be looking at. They'll be looking at how much they have put in and how much utility value those refineries can get out, and they'll also be looking at what is the value if they wanted to sell. So is it worth selling? Would they get a commensurate value, looking at how much they have put in already, or the remaining scope of upgrade remaining to get that refinery up to the point where it is producing in a very efficient manner. How much is it going to cost, and would that necessarily mean better or worse for their balance sheet? So I think that's the point view that they're saying. Again, we only, for us as experts, we're only saying this would have perhaps been better approach with different ideas, maybe from a different owner. But if they have looked at the books and they feel there's still a viability, then that's a challenge. But the most important thing, which we're happy about, is that they have had to go back to do a kind of deep dive review to see what are they going to do with it, what value are they going to be able to get out of it, and is it a sell or no sell decision. Once we have gone past that, like we've gone past that stage, the next stage is then to look at, okay, what is the real timeline we can promise for a restart? Because the timelines have to come from the experts who are doing the work. There needs to be that honest clarity, and not just maybe be on a haste to restart and then crashing to acknowledge that we need to take some time off to do another turnaround maintenance. So I think there are two parts of the question: sell or no sell. And if we're not going to sell, how are we going to retain it and run it in what manner, and what sort of turnaround are required? Let's have a clear picture of the entire turnaround that are required to be able to turn this facility around, make it productive.
Now, talking about, let's have a clear understanding, let's have a clear picture of what they are even talking about from the feasibility study that carried out, the financial viability and the rest of them. But there's one thing that have come to the average mind, to the mind of average Nigerian. Do you think that this latest action is in the best interest of the nation, or this group of people managing NNPC are also looking for another opportunity to gather some money somewhere and put it on the refinery, then we'll go back to the same status quo that where we are in the last 15 years? I'm talking about, is it in the best interest of the nation that they are not going to sell those refineries anymore?
I personally think that a decision of this sort, takes into cognizance the fact that the NNPCL are planning to go public with their shares. So no one is going to take decisions that are controversial, that are not data driven, and you do not have clarity on the line of sight of what your actionable plan is and how you're going to achieve your objectives and ultimately your goal. No one is going to do that for a company that is planning to be listed in the Nigerian Stock Exchange for a start in about 2 years. I do not think that's the case. So just because of the imperatives that a public listed company has and they're planning that, I do have confidence that they've reviewed the data. Again, I've always been an advocate of data-driven decisions. I mean, I may have stood at the part of let's sell it out, and the basis for that was that perhaps we'll be able to get a different approach to what has traditionally been done in the past. But the NNPC are managing it, a welcome development, but it just means that there is a commitment to do things differently than what has already been done. And there's also a commitment to be very forthright, both in the approach and forthright in the expectations and the timeline for those expectations, because that would help us to get to a point where we are balancing the status of the refinery from a politically correct position, but also from a technically and an economically correct position.
Exactly. But let's look at the aspect of the reality, the street correct perception of Nigeria. This is not the first time we'll be saying we want to sell a refinery, and this is not the first time we'll also come and say we are no more selling. We collected the refinery back from the people we think they have sold it for. But for ordinary Nigerians who are watching, who have heard government say they want to sell a refinery, because a colleague of mine went to the street and was taking voice polls of Nigeria, and many were like, they should sell it. After all, they said it's old, it's not working for how many years. And I can tell you authoritatively that you are not the only one that have that understanding that we need to sell it, but there are millions of Nigerians also believe that we need to sell it. But the question I want to ask is that if we don't sell now, is it not an opportunity lost that the value of these same refineries will now be more, as insurance people will say, it's no more value as you want to sell it from that was worth 10 naira before. We can say it is now worth 5 kobo. I'm just giving an example. So what I'm trying to ask is that if we don't sell it now, by the time we want to come back and say we want to sell it, what do you think will happen to the value?
Again, it depends on what the ultimate strategy is, right? And then if you want to maybe speculate on the strategy that is adopted, it's everywhere and anywhere, because the strategy may be to ultimately divest through sales. And let's think about that in two parts. On one part, divesting through sale could be, at this point, if we sell it, we may not get a good value. So if we've spent XYZ amount of money and gotten this far, how much do we need to spend more? Maybe a fraction of that amount, complete it. And if we complete it and operate it for like a year or two, we might be able to sell it for, a magnitude, a magnitude above the current value that it will be valued at if we wanted to sell it today. That could potentially be an exit strategy. Another exit strategy could be, okay, let's repair this and let's run it for the Commonwealth and sustainable development of the nation, and then they run it and then it serves Nigerians for decades. So it ultimately depends on the philosophy that fits into the business case. If we're looking at it like a private person that says, look, I want to run this and then retire, then that's when an outright sell becomes binding. But the NNPCL may be looking at it like, look, let's just put this up and then let it serve the nation. Or they may be looking at it to say, okay, no, look, let's turn this around, get it to a point where it commands the highest possible value it can command from, because now we have finished the project, we have shown the sort of profits. I mean, and then at the end of the day, we can prove that this is making profits. When you can show profits, the price you command is completely different from when you're just having maybe some sort of ideation and then you trying to build it and you're trying to get it operational. At that point, it hasn't gone to a point where there is real profits and you can say, look, these are the sort of profits that we're making. So it depends on the strategy. But like as I said, the dynamics and the options depends on what fits into the assumptions of the NNPCL.
Very interesting. But Doc, let me also take you another route. As part of the statement coming from the NNPC GMD, Mr. Bayo Julari, he said they are searching for a technical partner or technical partnership. And I know many Nigerians who have read that statement will be a little bit uncomfortable. NNPC and search for technical partnership. And we are talking about how much you have spent, about 18 billion so far spent on turnaround maintenance. What's your take on this search for technical partners or technical partnership to also bring this refinery to up-to-date level that the Julari management is thinking about?
Okay, I mean, there are many options, right? If you take an outright sell off the table, then there are a couple of options that could be explored. The first option would be one where you say you have, someone else do your operations and maintenance. So you outsource that operations and maintenance and say, look, run it as a separate, entity. Take some oversight from us, but let the experts run it, and they come in and then they run it on their own, and maybe for an agreed period of time. That's a possibility. There's also the possibility that, okay, look, we are going to bring in experts who are going to have a kind of partnership with us, put in the money required to finish up this plant, and then they become the operators, right? So in the first example, the NNPCL are the ones that fund the entire business, fund the turnaround, and they're just getting a technical partner to run that operations and maintenance aspect. But then on this other side, you have a technical expert come in with funding required to finish to a point where it is productive, and then they put their philosophy for operating it on the table and maintaining it, and then the NNPCL say, okay, let's get into that partnership for X, Y, Z years, where you operate and maintain, but then that allows you to recover your investment. So, I mean, the NNPCL may be looking at either of these routes as maybe what we call in engineering a quasi method. A quasi method is simply where you're striking more of you're trying to strike a balance, really, or a compromise between not selling at the same time not operating it yourself. You're trying to say, I'm not selling, but I'm not going to operate it myself. Let's get a middle ground, a quasi stand, a middle ground where I get someone else to do that bit under either of the contractual framework that I've laid out.
Exactly. The simplicity you are putting to this issue, as well as the argument you are putting forward, is quite, it's an interesting fact, I would say. But let us look at other aspects, because many Nigerians who have heard about the sales and now the reversal are a little bit skeptical, because I'm also a Nigerian and I'm speaking the mind of many Nigerians out there. But do you think we can trust this current management of the NNPC? Although Julari have said they are committed, they are showing their firmness in terms of commitment to ensure that the refineries work. But on the other side, with the humongous money that have been spent so far, $18 billion on this same 4 national refinery, we don't get anything tangible in terms of results. So, can we really trust these guys getting this thing done as expected?
All right, I think for the sake of clarifying the facts, I would like to say that from what I read, the initial statement by the NNPCL chief was that they were doing a review and that all options, including a sell, was possibly, underline the word possibly, on the table. It wasn't categorically that they were going to approach a sell, right? And he did say that the outcome of the review would inform that, but he had put every option on the table for that review, right? And coming back to say that, okay, we ruled out a sell simply means by method of elimination. This was a possible option, but we have ruled it out, but there's still a couple of more options that are still being considered. Okay, so we may not have the idea of what those options are until the entire review is over, and then we can frame up that this is the option we have taken. We're not selling, we're not perhaps operating, or we're operating, but if we're not operating, this is the model we're going to put out to complete and operate this facility. Right? So let's take it from that angle. But in terms of trust, as I said, it's not about, right, so there are two things here we have to go on. It's not about saying, do you trust in a very abstract sense? The context of trust here will be underpinned by two critical pinnacles. And the first pinnacle is going to be, what is their antecedent? In terms of not the NNPCL, it's the people that are constituting the board that will make decisions. And I can tell you for free that those you guys are from one of the best companies in the world. I mean, you cut across the IOCs, the international oil and gas companies with global exposure. So their decisions are not in doubt. The only issue I have is, whether they'll be given the freedom to make that decision is a different case altogether, and honestly so. The second bit here is that, how are the decisions taken? Are they taken from a political influence, or are they taken from a standpoint of there is a review, that review has informed the decision, and perhaps that review will be made public and available for the consumption of people like you and I who are quite interested, and very well so. So let's refer back to the 3Ds, where you say you discuss what you have agreed, you disclose what you have agreed, you discuss it, and then you document it. So that's the approach I would take. That gives confidence that, it wasn't just a magic wand approach. There's been a clear thought, there's been a clear analytical approach, and that we have disclosed it to the public, which is the first step that they've done. They have discussed it elaborately, and the experts get the buy-in, and they have documented it. Look, it's not, let's not get sentimental. It's not about one person or the other. It's about getting a better Nigeria.
Exactly.
And for us, at this point, we would go the side of, let's see the method you're applying in making your decisions. Is it still possible that after applying the best methods, we still don't get the outcome we expect? Yes, because we're not God. But we want to have an appreciation that we have tackled this the best way possible. And so I have very high confidence in the way and manner they've done that. That's on one side. I have very high confidence in the antecedent of the current people running it. The only area that could be contentious is, them having a free hand to make those decisions and not winning the wheel.
Exactly. And in Nigerian parlance, we have known that NNPC is the sacred cow. That's why political interference is always there when it comes to what is NNPC doing, or what they have done, or what they're about to do. So the 3D that you mentioned, discuss, disclose, and documentation. The major challenge is that they can have the documentation, they can discuss, but disclosure can be partial. But Doc, don't take that from me. I'm just trying to illustrate more what we are discussing. But let's go to another very important issue that come across. The 5% surcharge on petroleum products, both locally produced and imported. Doc, what's your take on that?
Oh, well, that's talking about the taxation. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, only the federal government understand, why that falls under the purview of taxation. There are some countries that they have given waivers. There are also countries that they have different ways of taxation. So there are countries where they put a higher taxation on the higher carbon intensity fuels, and then fuels like CNG have and LPG have a lower taxation. So there are different models, but it's not out of the ordinary what they've done. It could have been maybe free, because that's probably one of that gesture that will touch every Nigerian, but it's not out of ordinary. If you look at it across the nations that deploy taxation, it is fair. That amount is fair. Right. But it could have been free, and who wouldn't love a free zero tax on petroleum products?
Exactly, free lunch in free town. Well, here in Nigeria, there's no free lunch. Well, Doc, let's also take another very aspect that you are quite very passionate about: gas. Federal government said it has attracted $791.49 million in the CNG investment in Nigeria. What's your reaction, Doc?
Well, I mean, it's a good one, right? It shows that we have done tremendously well in not only, kickstarting the gas markets for Nigeria, because as I always maintain, Nigeria had and continues to have a gas need. Now, for you to create the market, it means you have to create the right infrastructure to be able to bring that gas to those that need it, and you also have to create the reliability to make sure that there is available source. It's available, it's accessible through the infrastructure, it's available because we're developing reserves or we're putting down mandates for companies to pass their gas onto the network, the national gas network. But it's also affordable, which that has been already established with the price point of the CNG. So that's good. The only thing is with investments are in phases, right? So they put an indication of interest, expression of interest, which you will see, but you need to take that forward by making sure that not only across the different phases, because they don't fund it 100% on day one, they fund it maybe 20% that is premised on making several tractions, that is premised on several economic fundamentals being sustained. And when that funding, economic fundamental is sustained, then the funding can be provided for the rest of the phases. So it is our hope that we can, ensure that the environment is ripe, it attracts and continues to bring in investment. And I think what will be very interesting, right, will be for maybe the federal government or maybe a third party experts to just look at, with all of these that the president is doing with the administration, the current administration, how do we fare on in terms of the physical competitiveness versus other nations? Why that report is very important is that when the companies, some companies, there's a Boston consulting group, BCG, that did one of that studies before the PIA was enacted, and it actually showed what the competitiveness terms was before the PIA and how the PIA would improve the competitiveness terms. But after that, I haven't personally come across a competitiveness study that tells people where the investment sweet spot is in the where Nigerian investment sweet spot is and how it compares to other nations. Why that is important is that is the link between what we genuinely do in Nigeria with the investment decisions that are taken out by global investors and investment companies. That study is what will show them that this is where Nigeria was before the PIA. After the PIA, this is where they were, and even after that, the president has come in, sweetened the terms, and this is now what the competitiveness landscape looks at versus other countries, and that could be maybe a catalyst to help us, hasten the tough job of attracting investments into Nigeria. I'm just saying that we should blow our own whistle. Essentially, we're doing a lot. But you know what they say in journalism, if it's not reported, it never existed. Let's blow our own whistle. Let's commission some of these studies to do some good comparative analogies and studies across board, where we can then use that as a selling point of the unique value proposition that Nigeria presents to investors.
Doc, I can't thank you enough. Your brilliant submission are quite laudable, and I can say they will go a long way to really shape the Nigerian oil and gas sector going forward. Let me also quickly bring to your hearing. The last time we discussed the Akwa Ibom signing an agreement with NNPC, we are hearing also that Delta State is about to go into similar engagement with NNPC. We just wish them the best of luck. But Doc, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you very much, and do enjoy the rest of your day. God bless you. Thank you.
All right.